Ethan's new little girlfriend didn't know the rules, she actually dared to stage a scene at the kindergarten gate. Ava, the one who isn't loved is the other woman. I looked at the beautiful and foolish woman before me and couldn't help wearing an expression of pitying affection. Laughable, why would I want his love? A life of scheduled payments without having to wait on a man is simply too sweet. What a pretty little fool. The woman's foolish yet beautiful expression before me made me laugh. I couldn't help but utter a fragrant remark. My daughter, already in kindergarten, surveyed the ostentatiously dressed woman from head to toe. As she passed her, she sighed softly and, in a babyish voice, said, "Ethan's taste is getting tackier and tackier." The girl was mortified, her eyes rimmed red with anger. It was truly pitiful to see, and I couldn't help rolling my eyes in moved exasperation. After getting in the car, Serena set her small backpack aside, crossed her arms, and looked at me. "Mom, when are you going to divorce Ethan?" "Huh, you actually want Mom to divorce Ethan? Aren't you afraid people will mock you as a fatherless wild child?" I gripped the steering wheel and glanced up at the rearview mirror. Huh? What's the difference? Isn't he basically nil right now anyway? That's true. I nodded, fully agreeing. And besides, think about it, Mom. Serena stood up, leaning over my seat to plead, "You're young and beautiful, and I'm about to start elementary school. The two of us really don't need Ethan, that man in name only. We'd do just fine, the two of us." "That's true, but I'm a little attached." Serena's soft, cute face went as if she'd seen a ghost. She stared in shock. "Mom, attached to what? He spends maybe 3 days a year with us if we're lucky." "Pfft, I, of course, am attached to his money." I pecked Serena's cheek quickly, full of collagen, soft and springy. Serena curled her lip and sat back in her seat. True enough. Even though Ethan keeps a bunch of young mistresses, he's still pretty generous to the two of us. Yeah, your beautiful mommy here can at best make $20,000 a month. Ethan may be unfaithful, but he's generous. Where else are we going to find a father who transfers money to the two of us like clockwork every month? I gripped the steering wheel and pulled into a little courtyard dotted with tiny flowers. I got out, took Serena's backpack, and took her soft little hand in mine. "But won't you be sad, Mom?" Serena stopped, looked up at me seriously. I crouched down so our eyes met, and said gently but firmly, "Serena, you can only be sad if you care. The people I care about, besides myself, are only you." Serena planted a wet kiss on my cheek, then hopped and skipped into the house. Watching her small figure, I let out a soft breath. The sunset gilded the roses in the garden with a layer of gold, and for a moment I was taken back to the day I first met Ethan. My marriage to Ethan was exactly like the fairy tale story everyone loves to talk about, the tale of Cinderella and her prince. At the time I was young and beautiful, full of learning and poetry, a somewhat famous academic goddess at Hygiene University. Ethan, on the other hand, was the heir apparent of Changming Group in City A. We met at an experience-sharing seminar. Ethan had returned for a limited time as an outstanding alumnus of Hygiene University, and I was the host of that seminar. After that, Ethan launched a full-scale courtship, but I declined each advance politely and with dignity. From beginning to end, I always knew the only asset I could really rely on was this striking appearance. And someone like Ethan was nothing to me but a passing fancy, a whim born of novelty. The drama of life is that before it opens up a beautiful sea of roses for you, it first lays out a path choked with thorns. As I said, I was that Cinderella, a sick mother, a father who died early, a broken, but I did not break. Instead I survived like a wild weed, stubbornly and tenaciously. From the time I started university, my various scholarships were enough to cover my living and tuition expenses. Writing novels in my spare time also earned me some pocket money. Before each of my mother's birthdays, I would save a little money as a present for her. After years of relying on each other, I knew better than anyone that money was more useful than any flashy, impractical gift. Dramatically, in my sophomore year, my mother was diagnosed with liver cancer, and a liver transplant would cost at least $300,000. After the diagnosis, she decided to forego treatment. "Ava, we're not doing it. I never had much to give you anyway. I can't leave you with a pile of debt when I die. I hadn't cried in a long time. After hanging up on my mother that time, I lay on my dorm bed and cried quietly for a long time. By chance, Ethan called again to ask me out to dinner. This time, I didn't refuse. Sitting in Ethan's passenger seat, I held my phone and searched Baidu for the price of a Rolls-Royce. The trailing digits on the screen alone would cover my mother's surgery. Have you cried? Ethan still had a touch of boyishness then, tall and handsome, his tone cautious and gentle. Is it that obvious? I said with a bitter smile. Did something happen? Ethan asked, feigning concern. My mother was diagnosed with liver cancer. The surgery costs $300,000, I said calmly. Ethan raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth lifting in a faint smile. So you only agreed to go out with me today? I know it's presumptuous. But borrowing from you really is the fastest way. I chose my words carefully. At that moment I was anxious. I feared angering Ethan. My mother's chances of staying alive would plummet off a cliff. You're very clever. Ethan tapped the steering wheel with a long forefinger, then smiled and said, but do you have the ability to repay? I bit my lip and said, in the short term, I may not be able to pay it all at once. But I can pay it off over several years. You can add normal interest. Actually, there's an easier way. Ethan freed one hand to cover mine, smiling as he asked, how about being my girlfriend? Ethan, do you mean that if I become your girlfriend, I won't have to pay back the $300,000? I looked down at the hand gripped by that large hand and asked in a low voice. Yeah. As long as you say yes now, I can transfer the money to you right away. Ethan smiled with the air of someone who could not lose. Aren't you afraid I'm a fraud? I hesitated. It's only $300,000. $300,000, that's it? In that moment I felt, with crystal clarity, how vast the gap between us really was. I really do like you, Ava. If you agree to be my girlfriend, I can even arrange the best doctors to treat your aunt. How about it? Ethan coaxed me gently, and took the chance to press a faint kiss to the back of my hand. Okay. When I heard my own voice, my mind was still hovering in a daze. My phone pinged with a bank message, $300,000 credited. From that day on, I became one of Ethan's girlfriends. Mom, what are you thinking about? Serena rested her cheek on her hand and looked at me, while I stared down at the potatoes I'd already poked full of holes and smiled. Nothing much, just thinking, Serena's birthday is next month. What do you want for your birthday present? I want you to divorce Ethan, then find me a new daddy who's 1.88 meters tall, has 8-pack abs, and is loyal and handsome. Little Serena counted off on her soft fingers and said it with utmost seriousness. I arched an eyebrow. The little one had quite the imagination. Leaving aside whether such a perfect new father even exists, even if it were Ethan, he wouldn't divorce me that easily. Not because he loved me that much, but because he thought I was the most suitable person to be Ava, gentle, pretty, sensible, well-educated, emotionally steady, someone who could win over a mother-in-law. Most importantly, I never interfered with the women he had on the side. I could even effortlessly get along with them. Pick something more realistic, sweetheart. Where on earth am I supposed to find you such a high-caliber new father? I scoffed, turning to prepare the sauce. Sigh, Ms. Ava, you're really wasting that pretty face of yours. Do I have to find a man to be in love with for it not to be a waste? Can't I admire myself, kiddo? I poured the stir-fried meat sauce over the mashed potatoes and said with a light laugh. Not necessarily. I just don't want to hold back my favorite mom, Serena said, pulling out her little booster chair and pretending to be casual. I set the minced meat mashed potatoes on the heat pad Serena had placed, patted her fluffy little head and said, how could it be? I raise you now, you take care of me when I'm old, very fair. Serena, holding her little pineapple bowl, scooped up a big mouthful of mashed potatoes and said between bites, Mom, that's emotional blackmail. So don't dwell on useless things. Living well in the present is what matters most. Ethan came in at that moment. Serena looked up, cast a cool glance at him, and, polite but distant, called out, "Daddy's home." I got up and went to the entryway to find him a pair of men's slippers. They hadn't been worn for a long time and were dusted with a fine layer of dirt. I brushed them off casually, set them on the floor, and said, "What brings you here today?" Ethan was impeccably dressed in a suit. After slipping on the slippers, he wrapped an arm around my waist, kissed my cheek, and laughed. "I heard my great wife was upset, so I came to offer my humble apologies." He said this as he took out a small gift box and handed it to me. Inside the box lay 6 neat little 20G gold bars. I closed the lid, smiling with my eyes, and said, "Thank you, husband." TSK TSK TSK, what a little money grubber. Still not mad? Ethan pinched my cheek, his voice amused. "When did I ever make things hard for your little wildflowers? Nana, Tiffy, and Coco still often invite me out to see movies or get our nails done. But your little girl this time went too far. She actually went to the kindergarten to corner Serena. You know, harassing me is one thing, but Serena is my bottom line." I stroked the gold bars and spoke slowly and deliberately. "Got it, Ava, don't be mad. I've already had the secretary give her a breakup settlement. If you don't like it, I'll change it." Ethan smiled handsomely, his tone carrying a hint of indulgence as if talking about today's weather. "Dad, I think tonight is Jack's birthday." Serena sat at the table eating mashed potatoes, not looking up as she said it. "Oh, so it is, I forgot." Ethan picked up his phone, sounding a little annoyed. I went to the locker, took out a wrapped gift box and handed it to him, saying, "This is the newest model PSP, Jack should like it." "Sigh, what would I do without you, Ava?" Ethan kissed my brow, took the gift box, then raised his hand and transferred $5,200 to me. "Thanks, wife. I'll be off then." And so, after half a year, Ethan stayed less than 5 minutes in front of Serena and me. As for me, I received 6 20G gold bars and a $5,200 transfer. Serena paced over, jingled the small gold bars in the gift box, and said with a calm air, "I think actually Ethan has one more benefit, he occasionally spits out a few gold coins." I wholeheartedly agreed. Ever since I treated the role of Mrs. Ethan as a job, my mindset grew increasingly calm along with the steadily rising balance in our bank account. I was at Serena's graduation when Nana called. The Lin family had originally planned to send Serena to an elite kindergarten, but after my repeated insistence, she was enrolled in a public one. That was the only time I ever made a request to Ethan. Given my good behavior over the years, he didn't refuse, he simply cleared it with the head of the school beforehand. So although Serena's identity as the daughter of City A's richest man was kept under wraps, the higher-ups at the kindergarten would still, from time to time, cast olive branches my way and show an unusual warmth. Although it differed somewhat from what I had imagined, at least the first step had finally been taken. From the moment I married Ethan, I knew this marriage had nothing to do with love, it was simply the result of a power struggle between Ethan and the chairman of the Changming Group, my late father-in-law, Victor. And that also meant this marriage would not last long. So I still hoped that after leaving the Lin family, my child and I could face ordinary life with equanimity. Wanting a divorce from Ethan was not easy. I couldn't humiliate him before he showed any sign of losing interest in me. It wasn't only because of the stable financial support, but even more because of his influence in City A. If the Lin family wanted to crush someone, it was far too easy. In the years I spent as Ethan's, I watched with my own eyes those who had wronged him fall from the heights and be trampled into the dust. That Ethan was able to smoothly take over Changming Group, quietly dispose of covetous branches, heretics, and illegitimate children, was proof enough that he was not a libertine who indulged in beauties. He had a certain pattern in choosing women. Sober, tactful, and clever girls who knew when to advance and when to retreat. There were, of course, exceptions, like the one who staged a scene at the kindergarten gate. Occasionally a girl pampered by material desire would grow a bloated appetite, mistake herself as special to Ethan, and make the wrong decision. Ava, Mr. Ethan seems to have taken a liking to a female college student recently. Nana's voice on the other end of the line was very calm. As one of Ethan's longest-running lovers, she was happy to share a bit of intel with me. Oh? Which university? Hygiene University, a sophomore. I heard she's a top student and very pretty, kind of, like you. There was a hesitation in Nana's tone. I thought I detected a hint of reluctance. Really? That's quite interesting. My gaze landed on Serena in a black dress. I hurriedly stood up from my seat and, baring my teeth, waved at her. Serena arched an eyebrow at me in a very cool way, signaling, I see you. This year's graduation theme was supporting environmental protection, and the kindergarten class all wore outfits their parents had made from recycled materials. For Serena's dress I took inspiration from the princess who upgraded its black gown with white flowers. Not to brag, but it photographed pretty well. Ava, I think Mr. Ethan is serious this time. You should prepare yourself. I sent you some photos. After I hung up, I didn't rush to open the photos. Instead, I grabbed my camera and started snapping a flurry of shots of Serena. Only after taking the pictures did I slowly open the images. In the photos, Ethan and the little girl were holding hands, each with a cup of milk tea, the kind he always looked down on, and they were wearing matching couple outfits, something he'd never worn before. Ethan truly had never shown that fresh, shy smile in front of me. He looked like a love-struck, inexperienced youth. But what surprised me most was how much that girl resembled me from 6 years ago, 9 parts out of 10. She had thick, long, straight black hair, and I had naturally curly black hair. That was the only difference between us. After the kindergarten graduation ceremony, I took Serena to have a photo shoot to commemorate her carefree childhood. While we were taking photos, I asked Serena which city she wanted to live in when she grew up. Serena was a very perceptive child. She sat before the makeup mirror, looking at me in the glass, and calmly asked, Mom, is my birthday wish going to come true? Well, sort of, half of it, I tilted my head and answered after thinking it over. Where Mom goes, I go. That night, after Serena fell asleep, I quietly checked the account balance. After we married, Ethan unfailingly transferred $50,000 to me every month. In the first 3 years I devoted myself entirely to caring for Serena and had no income, so I could only save around $30,000 to $40,000 each month. After Serena started kindergarten I resumed writing and doing new media work. From the initial $1,000 to $2,000, it's now $10,000 to $20,000, which easily covers everyday expenses for Serena and me. Ethan is very generous. For Serena's and my birthdays he always gives red envelopes of between $10,000 and $20,000, and on Valentine's Day or our wedding anniversary he showers me with a lot of gold coins. Now it's the 7th year of my marriage to Ethan, and my bank account already holds $3.5 million. To Ethan, $3.5 million is negligible, not even enough to buy a decent sports car. But to me, that money is enough to ensure that Serena and I will have food and clothing for the rest of our lives. That's one of the reasons I've been able to stay emotionally steady despite wearing a complex, layered green hat for 7 years. Admittedly, if I can wait for Ethan to grow old, or die, Serena and I might inherit billions. But I am certain that Serena did not like that kind of life. She was like a soft-bodied creature living inside a hard shell, calm on the surface, delicate and sensitive within. When she was very, very young, she too had once longed for it, to receive abundant fatherly love. But after one disappointment after another, she gave up completely and shut her heart closed. Whenever I think of that, I feel guilty. I used to think that perhaps if I married an ordinary man, my child would enjoy a warm, simple, and whole family life. At the time Nana sat across from me. After hearing this she scoffed and shot back, Sister, do you know how many married women would die for the life you have now? You think marrying an ordinary man will keep your father from being absent? In half the households, the husband comes home and drops his socks and clothes anywhere, sprawls on the sofa like a soaked rag, and besides taking dumps is glued to his phone. You complain a little, and he'll tell you how hard he works, how difficult it is to earn a living for the family, then gaslight you into self-blame, saying you aren't virtuous enough, not capable enough, that you haven't taken proper care of the children and the home. At the time, watching Nana sip her coffee and speak those words in a casual, slightly mocking tone, I didn't know what to say. Maybe there are men who are faithful to their families, who love their wives and children and are responsible, it's just that people like us never meet them. The Bulgari bracelet on Nana's wrist gleamed with a full, rich light, but there was a faint hint of lifelessness on her meticulously made-up face. "Ava, I envy you," Nana said to me sadly. "You are Ethan's legitimate wife, and you don't love him." In that moment I couldn't tell whether she envied my status as Mrs. Ethan or my clear-headedness at not loving him. Coming back to myself, I took out the jewelry box. Aside from the Lin family heirloom ring and bracelet, I packed everything else up together with the gold bars. On Ethan's mother Grace's birthday, I wore a suitably understated cheapao and had my hair swept into a low chignon, the gentle look Grace loved most. Serena was also wearing a modified cheapao, looking like a little doll stepped out of a poster, delicate as carved jade. Grace was a Buddhist, so every year on her birthday we went to the most famous vegetarian restaurant in City A. The owner's surname was Fong, and he was a respected figure in Buddhist circles, so their restaurant always had to be booked 6 months in advance. Starting the year after Serena was born, I began reserving meals there, and on festivals and holidays I never forgot to bring the owner small gifts connected to Buddhist devotion. Over the years, Boss Fong came to remember me as that dutiful and well-off wife. At every birthday dinner for my mother-in-law he would come by to take a look, offer a few auspicious words, and present 2 specially prepared dishes, always giving me plenty of face. "Old Madam Grace, your daughter-in-law really is something." Every year at the start of the year she books the best private room in advance, and they go through the menu a month ahead, truly like a daughter, nothing less. Boss Fong wore a beige cotton linen, front-buttoned modern Chinese jacket, and in his hand he toyed with the string of ice jasper blood dragon wood beads I'd given him 2 years ago. That's right, our Ava is the most filial, far better than my useless son. Grace wore an improved cheapao with a pipa-style collar in a deep jujube red woven with gold brocade. Years of living in comfort had left few traces on her face. When she smiled, only faint crow's feet appeared at the corners of her eyes, giving her an air of elegance and warmth. Oh my, with words like that, we'll all want to crawl into a hole. If Mr. Ethan proved useless, wouldn't we be stacked up and sold for scrap paper? Mr. Fong's tone was witty and humorous, and the atmosphere visibly lightened. It was at that moment Ethan entered, dressed in casual clothes that clashed with his usual status. Accustomed as they were to his sharply tailored suits, this youthful, energetic look was a refreshing change that caught everyone's eye. Mr. Fong didn't neglect Ethan because of his casual clothes. On the contrary, he shook Ethan's hand warmly and respectfully, said a bunch of flattering auspicious things, and had Grace beaming with delight. "What are you wearing?" After the door closed, Grace was ostensibly addressing Ethan, but her sharp gaze flicked toward me. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, suppressed my speechless feelings, and, unhurried, made something up. Ethan has been conducting research at Hygiene University these past few days. To deeply uncover the target customer's market needs, he's been disguised as a current student while working. I paused, doing my best to look like a love-struck fool, then said, "Mom, don't you think Ethan's CEO, personally hands-on like this, is incredibly handsome?" The expression on Grace's face softened a bit. She looked at me with a touch of exasperated affection. "You're the only one who would defend your own husband like that. I can't win an argument with you." "Oh, that's so unfair, Mom. How are you so elegant and charming even when you're angry?" I continued to blow a stream of flattery, diligently playing the devoted sycophant. "Your sweet talk is like honey on your lips. No wonder my son is completely wrapped around your finger," Grace teased, smiling as she announced the start of the meal. I smiled with gentle propriety, but inside I was cheering for that female college student, hoping she'd rise in status through her child and that I could abdicate. I've already saved up enough capital for a divorce, and I'm getting tired of playing the role of Mrs. Ethan. "That's right, look at the wonderful daughter-in-law I married you." Ethan, proud and beaming, draped an arm around my shoulder and looked at Grace as if asking for credit. Grace gave him an elegant eye roll. Because he was standing so close, I could smell the faint scent on Ethan. Unlike the heady perfumes Coco and the others usually wore, this time it was Chanel Chance Eau Tendre. Judging by Ethan's clothes, he must have rushed here straight from that college girl. I raised an eyebrow and the smile in my eyes deepened. I felt the day I regained my freedom drawing ever nearer. Thinking that, my appetite improved as well. As per past custom, we would all go to the old house and spend the night together. After the family banquet, the driver took the stretched Lincoln and drove our whole family back to the Wanhua villa. Serena was used to this routine. She remained calm the whole time, her emotions as steady as a meditating guinea pig. Ethan kept his head down, tapping at the keyboard. Though he masked it well, the slight furrow in his brow showed he was growing impatient. You could have guessed it with your toes. The couple in the honeyed phase, briefly separated, had generated a long, lingering grievance. I raised an eyebrow and had already started making preparations. If Ethan insisted on not staying the night, how could I invent a reasonable excuse to make Grace believe it? Sure enough, after dinner Ethan told Grace there was an urgent matter at the company that required the CEO to go back and handle it in person. Grace narrowed her eyes, smiling at him with a look that suggested she saw through things but wouldn't call them out. Only after a long time did she let him go. But once his figure vanished through the door, Grace looked at me meaningfully and said, "Ava, the Lin family's wife can only be you, understand?" My heart gave a jolt, but my face wore an expression of being flattered and grateful as I said, "Thank you, Mom." Grace stared at me for a moment, then waved her hand and had a servant help her up the stairs. Serena had her own room. She went to bed at 9 sharp every night, with a routine as disciplined as a hermit sage. I enjoyed a long, relaxing shower, and seeing the account balance had already swelled to $5 million, my mood brightened a few degrees. These past 2 days I went to a jewelry shop I know and sold all the gold pieces Ethan had given me over the years. In a few more days I'll sell the unused bags Ethan gave me as well. That should bring in another sum. Ethan was decent to Serena and me. If I went along with his desire for a divorce and allowed him to be united with his little lover, I should be able to get myself a rather hefty breakup settlement. The only question now was custody of Serena. As Ethan's only child, the Lin family wouldn't give up custody lightly, unless that female college student could give him a son. So this matter couldn't be rushed. The girl was only a sophomore in college, and she wouldn't be able to marry Ethan and have children anytime soon. That meant I still had to wait at least 2 more years. Sigh. I exited the phone screen, changed into my pajamas, started blow-drying my hair, and began seriously planning how to make good use of the next 2 years. Just as I put the hairdryer down, Ethan suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind. Before I could even ask how he'd come back so suddenly, a flurry of kisses landed on the side of my neck. When Ethan turned over to take a shower, I tried to convince myself that this was a duty a wife should fulfill. Once or twice a year, more or less, Ethan would resurrect himself like a zombie and on a whim perform his duties as a husband. But it doesn't matter, all that resentment, grievance, and speechlessness will eventually be soothed by the balance in my bank account. At least I still have money. Love can't fill your stomach, but money can. A new follower named Daydream appeared on Instagram. I clicked into her profile. Her most recent post was a photo of 2 hands holding. Married for 5 years, I could tell at a glance that it was Ethan's hand. The young woman's daily posts were like a little sun, optimistic, upbeat, and a bit cute. She was doing well in school, earning scholarships every year, and had passed the CPA and the Level 2 computer exams. From the selfie she posted, she really did look a bit like me. Although I didn't know why Ethan would seek out a little lover who resembled me so much, if the two of them really hit it off I could completely extricate myself from the Lin family, so I had to give them every opportunity. This year our wedding anniversary fell on the same day as Chishi, so I very considerately signed us up for a tour. Taking Nana, Tiffy, and Coco along, I went on a month-long seaside trip with Serena, the whole point being to create some alone time for Ethan and her. Serena was on summer break, and I had been wanting to take her to the seaside for a while. After all, once she started elementary school there wouldn't be such carefree, happy days anymore. This was the perfect opportunity. Coco brought Jack along too, so Serena would have a playmate. After a long journey, we arrived at a quiet coastal town and rented a small detached villa. Serena and Jack, exhausted from the trip, fell asleep early, and the four of us set up a little barbecue in the yard. Tiffy ordered 4 drinks from Starbucks. The delivery was surprisingly fast, the packaging intact, and the drinks were ice cold. Barbecue with coffee? Only you, Tiffy, Nana said, giving a thumbs up as she took the coffee. What's wrong with that? Aren't we out with Ava just to have a good time? Besides, Coco and Ava will both be looking after the kids tonight. Are you expecting them to babysit you too? Tiffy waved it off and handed a cup of warm coffee to Coco, saying, Coco, I specially ordered this one at room temperature for you. Ah, thank you, Tiffy, Coco replied happily as she took the coffee, then turned to me and said, Jack really likes that PSP. Thank you, Ava. Ah, how did you know I was the one who prepared it? I asked with a smile as I took the coffee Tiffy handed me. Is that even a question? Ethan's swamped with work, how could he think of this stuff? For our birthdays, which gift wasn't picked out by Sister Ava? Tiffy took a big sip of her coffee and complained dismissively. Oh, right. This is for you, Sister Ava. Nana seemed to remember something all of a sudden and handed me a gift box. I looked back at her in some surprise as I saw the Bulgari serpenti necklace inside. It was sent by the brand. Take it and play with it. Nana said casually, sipping her coffee, her gorgeous face betraying no extra emotion. Ooh, a big star, I want one too. Tiffy quickly looped an arm around Nana's and smiled obsequiously. Don't be ridiculous. Your top-ranking fan is practically ready to buy you a villa. What use are my little gifts to you? Nana smoothed her chestnut hair and said in a cool voice. Coco shook her head with a smile and placed 2 skewers of grilled meat on my plate. I looked at the 3 beauties before me, each charming in her own way, and couldn't help but marvel at the strange twists of fate. Coco could be considered Ethan's first love from his student days. In the years when he was most incapable, he met the girl he most wanted to protect. Yes, that's roughly the plot. At that time the heir to the Lynn family hadn't been decided, and Grace naturally wouldn't allow Ethan to make such a rookie mistake. Later Coco went abroad to study, learned the fashion design she loved most, and married a mature, steady designer. Unfortunately the good times didn't last, her husband died young. She returned home alone with her young son and ran into the now successful Ethan. When she was 15 she had once scored full marks in Ethan's heart, but at the time he didn't have the ability to keep her. Now that he does, of course he intends to make up for the regrets of his youth. I remember when Coco took Jack back to the country, Ethan and I were on our honeymoon. At that time Ethan left me alone in Bali for her, of course with a bunch of servants, bodyguards, and a whole lot of money. Back then Nana was still an obscure 18th-tier actress. When she heard Ethan was picking up Coco, she flew to Bali specifically to find me. I suppose the delicate bond between us began at that moment. As for Tiffy, a food blogger, she was noticed after she happened to make a udai cake that Ethan liked to eat, and later she also became one of Ethan's women. Ethan has had too many women for me to count. But in the end, only the 4 of us remained. Rather than saying we were chosen, it's more accurate to say we formed a firmer web of mutual interests. Nana was single-handedly built into a major star by Ethan, and in turn the various endorsements under the Changming Group all sought Nana, creating a stable economic relationship. With Ethan's help, Coco founded her own studio and has now become an up-and-coming designer of haute couture. Riding Ethan's influence, Coco made a name for herself in the industry. Ethan used her fame to extend favors and cultivate connections, winning over many people. As for Tiffy, Ethan funded her to start her own food brand. With genuinely good ingredients, a sweet appearance, and an appealing personality, she became somewhat famous in the e-commerce live-streaming scene. Now her brand has even expanded into franchises. Changming Group holds 40% of the shares, guaranteeing steady dividends. Some might wonder, since they're all so successful, why don't they rid themselves of the shameful, clandestine label of mistress? The reason is actually simple. Abandoning illusory love is easy, but years of painstakingly built work cannot be discarded lightly. Besides, with someone like Ethan, it's never possible to speak of love. We only discuss collaboration, profits, and opportunities for advancement. One thing is certain, Ethan always favored women who were clear-headed, rational, and ambitious. That's probably why the four of us, women from opposing backgrounds and different circles, could sit together so peacefully. We all knew exactly what we wanted. Playing the love card with Ethan was nothing but a dead end. That college girl posted something. Tiffy said as she munched on a skewer, leaning over to look at Nana's phone. Then she made the same expression an old person on the subway makes when staring at a screen. That piqued my curiosity. Coco and I exchanged a glance and squeezed over to see Nana's phone screen. I hope I will always be your only one, your favorite, your worth. One picture showed two hands wearing DR diamond rings, another was a proposal scene. DR, it's an engagement ring, right? Tiffy asked, frowning. I heard a man can only buy one in his lifetime? Coco, like an archaeologist, opened Google. Ava, what do you think? Nana looked at me with some worry. This is a bit outrageous, let me take another look. I took the phone, zoomed in on the proposal photo, glanced again at the comments, and couldn't help laughing out loud. Topping the comments was, to my surprise, a message, let me introduce everyone to my fiancé, Changming Group, Ethan. Did he tell you? Coco asked, looking at me with some concern. I shook my head calmly, but in my mind I was already quickly listing what I wanted, custody of Serena. This was a rare opportunity, so I asked Nana if there was a reliable PR operator. I wanted to push that Instagram post to the trending list. Nana frowned, looked at me for a long time, and finally agreed. We had a great time in the quiet seaside town, and the daydream post on Instagram kept drawing attention. Watching the steadily rising buzz, I knew Ethan had probably had a hand in it. It seems he really does want to replace his wife. Which suited me just fine. When we returned to City A, Ethan very unusually came to pick up Serena and me in a black Bugatti. Usually that was the driver's job. Well, Ava, did you have fun? Ethan still carried that graceful, unruffled air, no hint of flaw. Yes, I had a great time, Mr. Ethan. I replied with a light smile, deliberately enunciating Mr. Ethan. Ethan smiled indulgently and even reached up to touch my hair. Ava, do you know what I like most about you? I tilted my head back, my other hand still holding Serena's soft little hand, and said calmly, that I know how to read the room? Yes, the divorce papers are already drawn up. Get in the car and read them slowly. Ethan smiled gently, glanced at Serena, and said, Mom and Dad are splitting up. Who do you want to be with? Of course Mom. Serena looked as if the question were obvious, which made Ethan laugh. He tickled her nose and said, You little ungrateful one. Ethan gave me a very generous settlement, but custody was not part of it. I want custody of Serena. I looked up at Ethan, who said helplessly, My mother's side is hard to reason with. Then I'll have to trouble Mr. Ethan to try harder. Give me custody of Serena and I'll sign right away, that's my only demand. Ethan glanced at the rearview mirror at Serena curled up in my arms, sighed, and only said he'd do it as soon as possible. But before Ethan could notify me, Grace came looking for me first. I heard your useless son wants to divorce you over a college girl? How can you be so useless? Grace's chest heaved with anger as she demanded. To be honest, over the past few years, I've carried far too many of these ridiculous false accusations. I'm tired of shouldering them now. Yes, I'm useless, and I'm just about to step down and yield to a better person. I smiled broadly at the well-kept elderly woman, my tone surprisingly calm. You. How dare you talk back to me? How impertinent. Mom, I'm only stating the facts. Over the years, it's your son who has been cheating, seeking out different women, and you always pin those crimes on me. I'm tired of carrying this blame. I straightened my spine, kept my face impassive, and let my voice flow calm and gentle. Slap, I turned my face to one side, the left half of my face burned. If you get a divorce, don't expect to see Serena. As long as I'm here, that little she-devil won't be setting foot in this house. Grace spoke with full force, finally revealing her overbearing nature. Mom. Her name is Emma, could you at least show some decency? Ethan suddenly rushed over, caught my shoulders, and looked at the swollen side of my face with obvious pity. I turned and said, Mom, you forced Coco away and stopped me from marrying Ava back then, and now you won't let Emma in, aren't you meddling a bit too much? You damned brat. Tomorrow I'll ruin that little bitch's reputation. And Serena, that money-losing wretch, if you two get divorced, I'll sell her off to northern Myanmar. I sprang up and flung a glass of water in Grace's face. Try laying a hand on Serena. Then I headed straight home without looking back. When I saw Serena and Jack sitting on the mat together building Lego, the knot in my chest finally eased. Coco looked at my swollen, reddened face and wordlessly handed me a cool handkerchief, then led me out into the little garden. Who hit you? Coco asked me, a note of concern in her voice. Ethan's mother, I answered flatly. Coco wore an expression that said I thought so, and said no more. That night Ethan returned to our villa and brought with him a new divorce agreement. This time the agreement plainly and explicitly awarded me custody of Serena, and even threw in a Mercedes G-Class for good measure, supposedly to make it easier for me to drive Serena around. I raised an eyebrow. In a way, I felt that slap hadn't been in vain. After signing the divorce papers, Ethan and I agreed to go to the civil registry the next day to get our certificates. He looked at me pensively and, in a tone as casual as ever, asked, "No hug?" I found it a little absurd, but thinking of Serena's custody and the tepidness of our marriage, I finally opened my arms and hugged him back. After a month, I finally, as I had hoped, received the divorce certificate, and the bags I had listed on the second-hand platforms had mostly sold. Ethan also gave me the villa with the little garden. I accepted it outright and flipped it for $6.5 million. So I set out on my new 30s with a $50 million card in my wallet and a Mercedes G-Wagon. The day I left City A was a warm, sunny afternoon. The familiar streets blurred quickly behind us, and Serena was delighted, because I had bought her the golden retriever pup she had wanted for so long. The carriage was filled with Serena's long-missed hearty laughter and the soft, puppy-like woofs of the little golden retriever. The wind outside carried the scent of cut grass. I liked to call it the smell of freedom. I took Serena back to my childhood home, a border town where life moved slowly, the scenery lovely and the people sincere. Every year at Qingming, I bring Serena to visit my mother's grave. The $300,000 I got from Ethan only sustained my mother for 4 years. Though I married into wealth and everything looked splendid on the outside, my mother could always see my unhappiness at a glance and often blamed herself for it. But at the time there was no better or faster option, and I never once regretted it. The person I used to be stood in a fog, confused as well, only able to take one step at a time. Serena became much more cheerful and made many, many new friends in this small town. As for me, I became a full-time writer. Apart from driving Serena around and preparing 3 meals a day, I spent my free time typing away, doing manicures, and watching films. At night, I'd go out with Serena to walk Little Potato. These days I should probably call him Big Potato. In the blink of 4 or 5 years, Nana won Best Actress and announced her retirement from show business, leaving her fans to wail online for a long time. Coco moved to live abroad and even opened the studio in France. But Jack and Serena kept in touch, occasionally making international calls and sending little gifts that crossed the ocean. Tiffy hardly did live streams anymore. Her franchised shop had opened a branch near me, and when I passed by I even took a photo of it. The second time I went to eat there the owner didn't charge me. He said some mysterious benefactor had paid for me, and that from then on I wouldn't have to pay when I ate at that place. I was so shaken I never dared go back. Every so often I heard news about Ethan. He and Emma divorced in their 2nd year of marriage. Emma couldn't win Grace's favor, and she couldn't understand why Ethan always needed flocks of fluttering admirers around him. Ethan never remarried, though the women around him never stopped coming. But that no longer had anything to do with me. When I was 20, I made a choice I had to make, and spent 10 years feeling the gains and losses that choice brought. Now I have a lovely daughter, a big loyal dog who loves the two of us with his whole heart, and, barring the unexpected, enough money to last the rest of my life. I really like the life I have now, and I've always told Serena, love yourself first, then love others. With the mindset that whatever happens must be for my benefit, Serena gradually grew into a girl with a strong core, clear-headed and rational. I am very happy. I never hoped Serena would grow into one of those gentle, sensible, and kind girls. Those seemingly lovely words are little different from moral coercion. I wanted her to weigh pros and cons, calculate gains and losses, and be a woman who is happy because she chooses to be romantic yet shrewd. And I, at last, became Ava, who likes herself very, very much.